Welcome to the Dr. Joe Show, where we learn about women's health and sexual wellness. Our guest today is Natalie McLeary Stewart. I had to get used to her last name. Natalie, great to see you again. Natalie's one of my former students. Tell us what you're doing these days, generally, and kind of your earlier history, please.
Oh, that's a loaded question. So I went to MTSU in Murfreesboro and then moved to Chattanooga for a year. Then I moved to Maui for about 2.5 years, where I married my husband now, and we have been back in Chattanooga for a little over a year, and we have a 1-year-old baby girl. And I used to be a teacher. I taught for about 6 years in three different counties, three different public school systems. And now I am a stay-at-home mom, which has been an adjustment, but also a blessing in itself. So.
Well, that's great. Do you ever look back on your teaching time and wish you were in the classroom again, or are you okay being a stay-at-home mom?
Yeah, that's an interesting question that I think I myself grapple with on a daily basis. Sean's actually been out of town to Dallas to see his brother for a little while, so it's just been me here. So I've definitely kind of had some thoughts of, well, if I was getting up and going to work every day, it would break the monotony of it. But it's just been a huge blessing to just be able to be at home with Ava and not miss any of those milestones that she's making. And it's really the most important job, in my opinion, that you can do to be a mom. And right now we're currently able to do that and allow me to stay home. So I definitely have times where I miss teaching and I miss the positive things about it and the kids and the students and just the passion that I got to share with them on a daily basis. But I think it's just also been a learning process to put myself and my family first in this season of life. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and I'm sure you're an excellent mother. So, and you're excellent. I know you're an excellent teacher as well in that role. One other miss you question: do you ever miss being in Maui?
Oh yeah, we do. And that's another thing that I kind of, as a Christian, like I really pray about, and it probably took a full year for me to really feel content with being settled. If I really am ever settled where we are, Sean he's not in a very close relationship with his family like I am with mine. And so for his friends in Maui really were like his family. And so he's kind of missing his extended family there a lot. And for me, my family is here. And so I'm very close with them. And so of course I really miss a lot of things about Maui and all the things that it taught me. And there's amazing people there as well. And like we talk about, we don't know what the future holds. We might go back there in a year, 5 years, 10 years, maybe never. It's not a completely shut door in our eyes, but who knows?
Yeah, you had that chapter in your life though, and what a great chapter. If you never make it back there, what a great chapter to be able to look back on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful place. I've only been there once, but it left a big impression.
Oh
So
yeah, it's unlike anything else.
well, let me just say for our audience that Natalie is one of the best students I ever had in class. And
Oh, he's just saying that.
no, I'm not. I'm not really not. And I've had a lot of students, as you can imagine, over the years. But Natalie was helpful to me both in class, and then she's a sorority woman, so she invited me to come to her sorority, and then she came and worked with me with some other sororities, and so we've had a special and really close relationship over the years. And so I've really enjoyed watching the progress of her career, over the years, both in their teaching and then as she and Sean got married. Wonderful story. So would you mind, Natalie, going back a little bit to your college years and just kind of tracing forward as far as how that worked out? Again, the focus of what we're about here is especially college women's health and sexual wellness. What would you say, looking back, as far as from the college years up to where, you know, where you got married, what were some of the keys, different things that you learned along the way?
I learned a lot. Heartache was kind of all part of it. I'm kind of a stubborn person. I know you may not think that about me, but I was definitely the person that had to learn things the hard way. And looking back, it's funny, I actually was reading through the questions and I had to think back. I was like, you're getting older when you have to like sit and ponder, like, who did I date in college, or what was that experience like now? Because you just kind of live day by day. Yeah. What did I learn? I learned to, well, first of all, I figured out who I was as a person, um, and the things that kind of made me who I am today. And that was really hard. Looking back in college, my relationships, I dated a couple guys. I went to college with a 4-year relationship and broke that off because I was going from Memphis to Murfreesboro and I didn't want long distance. And my high school boyfriend treated me really well. And, I was just kind of like, oh, I just want to do college and see what's out there. And then, flash forward to college, I kind of was living in this facade that every guy that I dated or met would treat me with the same respect that I had with my high school boyfriend. And that just didn't wind up being the case. I was getting a lot of attention. It was kind of like you're, going into the big pond, little fish in a big pond, so to speak. And, it was an exciting time when you're meeting all these people and you think that all this attention is positive, but it actually, wound up being the opposite of that. And it was the wrong type of attention. And the other thing is, figuring out what my standards were for a guy, like, of course, in college, everyone is basically, it's all about the attraction, right? That lust, that, oh, that guy's hot or that girl's attractive or whatever. And there's really not anything else there a lot of the time. And I found myself kind of saying, well, I want more than that. I want there to be like, I want them to have a good personality, or I want to have this attraction or this connection with them. And so I remember there was a period of time when I actually wasn't dating anyone, and being in a sorority, we would have date parties all the time. And I vividly remember not having a date to these date parties sometimes. And my friends would be like, you're so gorgeous. Like, why can't you find a guy? And it was because I didn't want to just settle for, any guy that came along. I wanted there to be a holder layer there. So there was that internal conflict of trying to fit in and just have someone, so to speak, right, to have fun with and go on dates with, and go to date parties with, so to speak. And then the few relationships I did have in college, I was cheated on several times. So there's just that, you kind of get scarred from that. You again, don't ever think that that's going to happen to you. And like I said, I kind of lived in this world that everyone was honest. And even then, when I graduated college, I was like, okay, I have a career. Now I have this boyfriend. He was a little older than me. So, he had a house, he had a job, he had a car, he had, everything. I was like, hey, this is it. And you kind of put all your eggs in that basket. And then he wound up cheating on me as well. So then, fast forward, getting over that breakup, I was single for probably about 3 years. And during that 3-year period, not being in college where you're not constantly surrounded with other young single people and you're more of an adult, right? And all your friends are getting married and having kids. That was a really important part of my life that has brought me to where I am today, because I feel like I really needed that time, like I said, to find out who I was as a person, and not who is Natalie in a relationship with so-and-so, who is Natalie, dating this person. It was just, who is Natalie by herself, on like, what are my interests? What are things that I enjoy doing? And really making yourself whole as a person instead of looking for a relationship. And I also vividly remember, I would go through phases where I would say, like, I don't even know if I want to get married. I don't want to have kids. I don't need a guy, and you get on this, that high strung horse of like, I can do this by myself and I don't need anyone. And then swinging the complete pendulum, because we're built for relationship, we're made for relationship with one another. And kind of to that whole like desperate aspect, right? Where me and my friends would go out and I would just, I remember going to an outing and going up to a guy and giving him kind of the rundown of like the 21 questions and who are you? What's your name? What do you do? Da, 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 da. And it's like, well, that's not attractive either. Right. And so it was really about finding that middle ground of just being okay, being single and being content in your life with who you are. And then I went on a vacation to Maui with one of my other old college professors, and he took a group over there, and we were over there for a couple of weeks, and I just ran into Sean randomly, and we hung out and exchanged numbers and all of that. And I left Maui thinking I would never see him again. And I went back over there for one of my spring breaks or fall breaks. And again, it was just, okay, like, you're cool. We're in Maui. This is fun, whatever. And then, he visited me, I visited him, he visited me again. And it was kind of a critical moment in my life where I had paid off all my college debt, praise God. And I wanted to make a move and do something else. And I wasn't even sure at that point if I wanted to be with Sean. And I was actually still seeing other people here, still trying to figure out what I wanted to do here with other guys. And it literally took me, of course, Sean found out. It was literally, I was about to move to Maui. Sean had found out I had talked to another guy when I had come back to get myself and move. And it took me almost losing Sean to realize what was most important in my life. And the guy I was seeing at the time was not a good thing. And like I say, from a Christian standpoint, I think God had to move me halfway across the world to find my one true love, the one that I was supposed to be with, and to get me out of the funk that I was in. So Sean and I lived there for a while and got engaged and then got married. And then we were pregnant with Ava, and that's when we decided to move back. So wow. And the rest is history. And we're still growing as a couple and learning new things about each other. And that's all just the beautiful, beautiful part of marriage. But I couldn't have done any of that if I hadn't had those seasons of figuring out who I was, those seasons of heartache and heartbreak to figure out, what are you going to put up with? What are your standards? What are you going to be okay with? You have to go through all of that to not only appreciate when the right one comes along, but to, like I said, just to figure out who you are as a person. So
right. Well, it sounds like a
long-winded answer. I'm sorry.
No, actually it's probably, I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of young women that are going to relate exactly to what you're saying. They may be earlier in that whole, sequence of events that happened, but right. Yeah, but I imagine that already, I mean, wherever they are, somewhere in the college age group, that they're going to be able to say, yeah, that's me. I'm kind of in the early stages of that. What would you say, looking back, is there anything you would have done differently as far as back in your college years, knowing what you ended up knowing, later? Is there any other things you would have done?
I definitely would have just been more true to myself and less, not that I was really affected by peer pressure, but I was definitely aware of just people around me and the guys that they were dating and the relationships that they were having. And there's really always, especially with women, always that comparison, right? Like, they're so happy and they have a guy all the time. How come I'm not happy, or I don't have a relationship or whatever? So I would have just, if I could give myself advice, I would just say to really just stick it out and persevere and have that stamina, and also to just stand firm in your expectations, not to sound uppity or, stingy, so to speak, but just to understand your true value as a woman, with your intelligence, and especially with your body. And I think that's the other thing too. I really wish that I would have had your book, Battle of the Sexes, when I was in college, because there's so many other things going on, especially in those young years in your early 20s. Hormones are just raging, and a lot of it, it's hard for us to understand. And hormones are kind of spoken of as being taboo, but it's really a lot of why we think and act the way we do. And if we can understand why sometimes males are acting and thinking the way that they do, it kind of helps that out. So just understanding on a chemical level what's causing some of the things that were going on that might leave you in tears when you're in college and you don't understand why that guy's not calling you back or whatever. But it's definitely a bigger picture. And I'm really thankful that I did have your class when I was in college, because I was at least getting into the realm of what was going on and understanding. Again, that was another piece of understanding who I was as a person, physically and mentally, and taking care of myself. It's like I said, to know who I was as a person, taking care of myself spiritually and mentally and physically, the whole body approach, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for saying that. And that's really, you kind of read my mind as usual, but that's what we're trying to get out. I mean, the book is one thing, it's great. And I hope to get that in as many hands as possible. I'm willing to just give it to people, especially young women, because like you said, I think it can really help them understand, their motivations, especially the guys' motivations, and how oftentimes that really differs, the young women and young men, especially at that age, really, especially when it comes to sex, are looking at it through different lenses. There's a different motivational lens there. And in general, the women are on some level probably seeking a relationship that may end up being a permanent relationship. The guys, in a lot of cases, that may be very far from their mind. And so in general, over my years of teaching all you young ladies, and then since then, in class and still going and speaking, there's a lot of heartbreak, that ends up, especially on the female side of it. You mentioned it earlier, heartbreak and heartache. And then there's a little bit on the male side, but generally that's a pattern that is followed, is females, being, their hearts being broken and getting disillusioned, like you said earlier, and sometimes getting hardened, sometimes getting cynical and jaded and that type of thing. And so I think, as you said, I mean, if we can help these younger women, like maybe straight out of high school, even, just graduated high school and first and second years of college, to understand what's happening with themselves and then with the guys, and then kind of this whole sexual scene, so to speak, then maybe we get some of that learning that you've described might come earlier. So other things that you might want to say to them, as far as experiences, as far as recommendations or anything else along that line?
Just know that whatever season that you're in life, to embrace it. So it's really easy to look onto the future and wish that, like a lot of women in college, especially in sororities, it's like, I want to be married, I want to have babies, I want to fast forward to that chapter of life. Or, maybe you are wishing that you were in a relationship, or maybe you're in a relationship, you don't want to be in a relationship, or whatever season that you're in. Really just embrace that season, because you're going to learn so much from that season, not only about just life in general, but really about yourself. And honestly, I would just say, keep your standards high. I understand that when you're in college, especially, you look around and you just think like, well, am I going to be single forever, or am I ever going to be married? Because, I have a sorority sister that's, only a couple years younger than me, and she still hasn't, she's not in a serious relationship, because she says that there's not any good guys out there. And I would just say, keep your standards high and don't settle, and just really just be content with who you are in your season in life. and just know that like your identity and your fulfillment doesn't have to come from, being in a relationship or being in that marriage or whatever. Like I said, you're going to learn a lot in whatever season of life that you are currently in. So,
Yes. Yes, exactly. That's great. Great advice. And it's almost like mindfulness advice, really thinking about, what's the situation that's going on, not just letting the next whim, draw you in that direction. I know you've got a great family. You mentioned it earlier. I know your mom, and I know you've got a couple sisters. Were they instrumental along the way at all as far as influencing you in a good direction, or how did that work out?
Yeah, I've been extremely fortunate to have a really good family, and it's something that I feel like I took for granted. And then I met my husband, and he didn't have a great upbringing, and it's still affecting him in a negative way. So I'm just so thankful for my mom and my sisters and my dad. My mom and I were really close, and I would say more like friends. So I was really transparent with her as well as my sisters in most things that I was doing. I definitely always would take situations to my mom for advice, which was a solid thing because my mom was always the person who, as much as she loved me, you would think that she would be extremely biased, but she would also be very quick to tell me how it is and play devil's advocate, so to speak, and always interpret the other side. But she would always be my cheerleader and a person that would remind me of my worth and my value and kind of ask me the hard questions sometimes when I was doing stupid things, so to speak. And when you're outside the situation, you're looking on and you know that what your child is doing is going to end in hurt and heartache. But when when I'm, 22 years old and, I can only see, I've got tunnel vision, I can only see what's right in front of me, that's really hard. So she was there to listen and give wise counsel and advice, and again, just remind me of my worth and everything that a mom should do and should be. And with my sisters as well, I really look up to my sisters, and so I have to say sometimes I wouldn't be as completely honest with my sisters because I cared more about their judgment of me and what they would think of me, because my sisters would be like, well, you're stupid, why are you doing that, and that can be which lets you know if you're not telling them something that you shouldn't be doing it. So
Right.
but they also had their relationships that I had to look on to, and things that they were going through that, ended in heartache and upset for them. So it was kind of just this joint learning process, so to speak, just navigating those years. And like my mom always said, and she can still remember this quote. She says, you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you get to your prince. And
Yes.
so I think that's completely true. And it's funny, but it really is true. You have to date a lot of bad ones before you find the right one. So
Yes, I've heard that often as well. Yes, not so much to me, but in over the years, I guess I was trying to avoid being one of those frogs, and being a prince.
mm-hmm.
Um, Speaking of your prince, let's talk about Sean a little bit. Again, a lot of these young women that are watching this may be wondering, okay, how did you know that Sean was the one, and how did you come to the conclusion? Oh, after all the years, go ahead. Go ahead. What would you say on that?
Yeah, the funny thing is, it's not like it is in the movies. You don't just know, right? There's not like a dove that flies out of the sky and says like, he's the one. And there's like, flowers and unicorns and stuff like that. It's really not like that. I'll say this, the thing that set Sean and I's relationship apart from the very beginning was that we were long distance. So all we had to build on was a friendship. And it was all based on communication with each other. We couldn't see each other every day. We didn't have that physical touch with each other. All we had was cell phone. And now Sean is 13 years older than me. So he would actually physically call me on the phone every day, which I know some, especially college people will be like, why is he calling me? But I think that is really what set our relationship off on the right foot was that all we had to do for, before I moved to Maui, so for about 2 years, it was that we were just, all we did was talk to each other. And that is one, when you go think about marriage and relationships, having good communication is one of the cornerstones of a healthy relationship and a healthy marriage. And so just being able to talk to each other every day and get to know each other, I think that was really, really important. And I don't know that it would have been the same if we had, been able to see each other and be all up in each other's space every single day if we lived right by one another. The other thing that happened that I kind of knew Sean was the one was, like I said, right before I moved to Maui, I was quite frankly being selfish and really immature in my relationships. And like I said, Sean was older than me. So, he figured I was moving to Maui, we were going to be in a relationship, and, that was it. And I was still doubting. I didn't know if I was ready for that commitment of that relationship. Like I said, I had been single for like 3 years and doing whatever I wanted. I lived by myself. I didn't have anybody to answer to. So moving across the globe and then being in a committed relationship with someone was it was really honestly scary for me, because I didn't know. I didn't know if it was going to work, and I didn't know if I had what it took to be in a relationship, because quite honestly, when you're single, you can be extremely selfish. You don't have to think about anybody but yourself. So being in a relationship is hard work. You have to think about the needs and the wants of others, and same thing with marriage. So when I had that issue and then moved over there, and Sean, I vividly remember I was trying to find a place to live because we were living separately when I moved to Maui. And he, even after finding out that I basically was, I had gone and seen another guy, to be completely vividly frank with everyone, and he still went and was looking at apartments and places to live for me, because I wasn't in Maui. I couldn't do that. So I think that act of selflessness, because he cared about me enough to know that even if we weren't going to be together, that I needed a place to live. So just, again, he put me before himself, even though I had hurt him. And that really stood out to me as something that nobody else would have done if we weren't really meant for each other. So that, and just the fact that he really stuck through me. I went through a really big growing period when I moved to Maui. I didn't have my family there as a safety net anymore. It was me in a different, basically different country, but a different culture. I was learning a lot. I bought my first car there. Sean sat with me through all of that. And this is funny, but I'll say the last reason why I knew that Sean was the one, we were sitting in the car dealership and we were going to buy a car, and he was trying to haggle with the car salesman. And finally he was like, he's hard on the price, it's not going to work. And then before we drove home, I had to get insurance, and I had no idea I was going to have to do that. And so Sean just called and he put me on his insurance, and we were just dating at that point. And I was like, well, that's it. I'm on your insurance. I guess this is for real. I guess we're committed to each other now. No, but in all honesty, it's the daily things that Sean does in and out. And if you talk to anyone who's married, you know that it really is the little things that make a big difference. And Sean is that person that goes above and beyond for not just me, but everyone else around him. And that's really been the number one thing that has allowed our relationship to thrive and survive. And it's a really beautiful thing, because as you enter into marriage and relationship, if you're open to it and willing to, you make each other better people. Mm-hmm. And so that's been a really great and beautiful thing, especially being parents as well.
Yes. Yeah. Well, again, I know you mentioned earlier, a little bout of immaturity, but you've always inspired me with your maturity in the times that I've known you, over the years before you left for Maui and that type of thing. So, but I know exactly what you're saying as far as, anybody, young women, young men, especially maybe young men sometimes, because it takes, I think, us longer to mature. but we go through our times where we need somebody to help guide us through some of the bad decisions we make or short-sighted. It sounds like him being 13 years older than you, and having that much more time and that much more maturity may have been a real advantage, and continues maybe to be a real advantage for you guys. But it sounds like also the way that he treated you so well and so selflessly, that in a way probably helped you to mature and kind of overcome some of those attitudes that you had, as far as not kind of waffling on the decision and that type of thing. So yeah, so might not be such a bad idea for women to marry somebody that's maybe a bit older than them, because like I said earlier, the guys have a tendency to take along longer. But what do you think on that?
I'm living testimony to that, and it keeps paying off. Let's put it that way, because he's, as I say, well seasoned in life. That it allows him to relate to other people and understand things in a different way. Even, my sisters in their relationships, they're married to people who are their age, and so there's still an age gap there. And he's like, well, I think back to when I was that age and I was doing X, Y, and Z. And so I'm like, well, I'm glad that I met you later in life, because I wouldn't have wanted Sean in his early 20s, or early 30s, so to speak. So it's definitely been a blessing for him to be older, and just being around the block and having more experience. With experience comes wisdom. So it's definitely been a positive thing for our relationship.
Right, and I'll bet your family loves him. Sounds like they would love him.
Oh yeah. I mean, of course, I've never met anyone who doesn't love Sean, but he just kind of has a really loving, kind spirit. And yeah, I always love to introduce him to new people, because it's really hard not to have a smile on your face when you talk to him, because he's just that type of person. Like I said, he wakes up every day and his feet hit the floor, and he is the same happy, even kill person, which is such a lifesaver, especially being a woman, and your hormones are even just from 1 hour to the next. And I just, I'm so thankful that he stood by me through all of that. And of course, then like having a baby and just transitions and different things that we've been through. It's just a beautiful thing to have that, just him being that same steady person. It's really, really awesome.
Yeah, well, I'd like to meet him someday too. That's been my impression. Your description of him has been my impression. So I'd love to meet him sometime if the occasion allows. Last question for you, and it's kind of maybe a two-parter, but any last piece of advice you would give younger women, 18 to 25, will include like the graduate level as well. And what do you think has been the most fulfilling thing in your life so far? Those two questions. And again, anything I've left out that I should have asked about that I haven't.
Okay. Last pieces of advice, just I would say surround yourself with positive, good friendship groups. Get involved. Of course, this is coming from a Christian standpoint. Try to get involved in church. If you're in a church, get into a small group. Just being with like-minded people who have the same morals and values as you is going to be extremely, extremely helpful. Where you're at in these critical years. It's a really fun and exciting time, and like I said before, you're going to learn a lot. But just having that support system, whether it's your family or especially if you're away from home, in college, like I said, having a small group of people that know you well and can help you keep those standards and morals and values where they need to be, and when they're not, they can kindly redirect you. Because like I said, a lot of heartbreak and heartache comes from when you're not keeping yourself up to those standards that that you should be. And I would also say don't be afraid to wait for that special person that that God has for you. And I know it sounds cliche, and it's really hard when you're in it and you're doing the day to day and you're wondering why I found the person, or you're wondering, if this is the person. Just know that again, from a Christian standpoint, that God's timing is perfect, and that you're, like I said, you're in the season that you're in for a reason to learn things, and just to be patient. And going to the second question, the most, what did you say? The most
fulfilling thing that you've come across in your life?
Well, I'm really biased because I have a baby now. So,
I suspected that, but
yeah.
I wanted to keep it open for you.
Yeah. So again, it sounds really cliche that being a mom is the most fulfilling thing in my life. But, and of course, college women that are listening to this, they're probably like, oh, rolling their eyes, oh, she's married and has a baby. And they, like I said, there aren't unicorns and doves that fly around. But really, like truthfully speaking, being a mom is the most difficult job that there is, but it's also the most rewarding job, and it's the most selfless job that there is. But like I said, it is the most important thing that I think I will ever do in my life, is to raise another human being. So it's so fulfilling in so many ways. I can't even begin to go into detail. You having kids, you understand. But it's not only made me a better person and made me grow as a person, but it's also brought me and Sean closer together, right? Because it's a new season and you're learning about each other. When I met Sean and married Sean, he wasn't a dad, and I wasn't a mom. So just walking through that chapter in life together is just a really fun and beautiful thing. And just the love that you have, like you think that you can love you love your spouse and you love someone, and then you have a baby, and then you are like, I didn't know what love was before I had this baby that's literally a part of me. So very fulfilling. And I hope that all of you watching get to experience that if it's something that you want one day.
Yes, me too. And I can say amen to all of that.
Yes.
And even on the wall behind me there, you see the next generation. You see my grandkids,
Yeah.
in the pictures on the wall. So it just keeps paying off, as you go forward. Well, was there anything that I didn't ask that you think would be an important point to make with this audience that's watching this?
I would just like to stress, I would like to stress the importance briefly. This probably goes without saying, but just the importance of your physical health, and just your physical health, and how this is going on like a sidebar to like sex and relationships and stuff, but just about food and exercise and how those things can also affect your mental health and your mental well-being. I am still so interested in all of that, and really just kind of the more that I read and do research and stuff, the more shocked I am that more people don't have this knowledge and information just about the food that we eat and how it affects our bodies. I read a book called The Crazy Makers, which is all about feeding infants, and then what growing children need, and then what high schoolers need, and then what adults need, and how the food that you eat is really affecting your brain development and all of those things. And then so again, just eat healthy, eat real food, and take care of your body, because that's all going to it's all going to affect your mind and how you feel physically and emotionally. And all those things are really important, and especially in the college years when you have the fast food and everything is convenient, and you're not cooking, or you're living in a dorm. Just take a second to step back and think about what you put into your mouth and how that is affecting your mind and your brain and how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
So
amen to that as well. Preach it, sister. Preach it. I didn't even pay her to say that. But no, I totally agree. And over the years, having the experience of teaching all the great young women like yourself, having had that honor and privilege, and also doing all the research behind it, the PhD research and all of that, I've come to realize, especially with young women, it's all very real, very interconnected as far as the food you're eating, whether or not you're getting exercise, you know, your stress levels, and then you know you've hit on this several times going through our time together here tonight, but you know your body is this precious temple, so to speak, and along with all the other ways that you've described so well of taking care of it, um, maybe waiting for the right one to share your body with, you know, as far as the guy that's the, you know, your prince, you know, your love, the love of your life. And it's difficult in this time, in this day and age, but that's something I think, you know, you and I would both agree on many others, that if it's at all possible, escaping that time that, like you said, the time you're in at the moment, you know, the heat of the moment, so to speak, if you could add that to the list as well, as far as another way to take care of your body and really um, acknowledge the preciousness of what you got, you know, and 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 understand your worth, because young women are worth so much as far as what they have to give. So, so I'll throw that in as well. That's what I've come to, as in addition to all the other wellness elements, which of course eating and exercise and all the rest of it is so important, but also the sexual relationships can either at the right time in the right context can really add to that whole picture, or they can really detract. And
Right.
unfortunately I see a lot of them detracting. So
Yeah.
but anyway, Natalie, thank you so much again. You've shared a ton of wisdom here in a short period of time, and I know that young women will get a ton out of this. So, and I appreciate your taking the time with me again tonight, and once again helping your old professor, your old coach, your old
Anytime.
friend.
Anytime.
So, but thank you again, and I hope you have a great evening. And give little Ava a little hug for all of us. And
Oh, I will.
thank you.
I will. Thank you. Talk to you soon, Coach.
All right, take care. Great to see you.
You too.
Bye bye.